Ethan Cole moved through the empty hallways of Langley Enterprises. The floors gleamed, polished every night, reflecting the cold, lifeless light from above. His mop glided across the tiles, each stroke wiping away the footprints of people who never noticed him. A janitor. That's all they saw. That's all he was supposed to be. He passed a massive glass wall overlooking the city. From here, the skyline stretched out in every direction. Towers of wealth and power. The world of men like Victor Langley. Untouchable men. Ethan gripped the mop handle tighter. He used to belong in that world. Once, 5 years ago, Ethan sat at the head of boardroom tables, dressed in tailored suits, speaking numbers and strategy with the confidence of a man who knew he was the best in the game. He wasn't just a finance expert. He was a forensic genius, the kind of mind that could track down hidden money trails, uncover fraud buried beneath layers of offshore accounts, and see through corporate deception in minutes. People listened to him. CEOs feared him. Then he made a mistake. He exposed the wrong company. A billion-dollar firm laundering money through fake charities, controlled by men far more powerful than he realized. He had the evidence. He had the truth. But the truth didn't matter. The company crushed him. Lawsuits. Smears. He lost his job. Then his credibility. Then his career. His name became a cautionary tale in finance circles. A man who thought integrity meant something in a world where only power ruled. Blacklisted. Unemployable. Erased. And now, a mop in his hands. A janitor's uniform. Cleaning the floors of a corporate empire just as corrupt as the one that destroyed him. Victor Langley sat at the top of it all. The man had built an empire on deception, playing the markets, rigging deals, crushing anyone who got his way. Langley wasn't just wealthy, he was untouchable. The government? Paid off. The media? Controlled. His enemies? Silenced. And Ethan? He was nothing to him. A speck. An invisible stain in the background of Langley's perfect world. Ethan had seen the man once. Late at night, walking to the halls with his inner circle, talking in low, confident tones about deals worth billions. Langley didn't even glance at him. Why would he? He never noticed the people beneath him. Ethan wiped down a glass door, his own reflection staring back at him. That was his mistake. Because nobodies like Ethan, they watched everything. The wallet that changed everything. It was late. The offices were empty. The only sound was a faint hum of computers and the distant thud of music from the night shift security team. Ethan worked on the top floor, where only executives walked during the day. The kind of place where deals worth millions were signed over coffee. That's when he saw it. A black leather wallet, left on the desk in Langley's office. His gut said to ignore it. But his instincts, the analyst in him, the man who used to expose fraud for a living, knew better. Langley never left things behind. Never made mistakes. Ethan glanced toward the security cameras. Then he picked it up. Inside, there was nothing unusual. Credit cards. A driver's license. The same things found in any wallet. Then he noticed a folded piece of paper, wedged deep in the corner. A name, a number, a cryptic sentence. And at the bottom, a USB drive, tucked into a hidden compartment. His pulse quickened. This was important. Too important. He took the USB, pocketed the note, and moved. Fast. If he was caught, no, he wouldn't be. He knew the blind spots of the cameras. He had studied them for months. A janitor sees everything. He reached the janitor's closet, locked the door, plugged the USB into an old tablet. The screen flickered. Files loaded. Then he saw it. Massive fraud. Money moved through offshore accounts. Shell companies shifting billions in and out of ghost charities. Langley wasn't just stealing from investors. He was laundering money for people Ethan didn't even want to think about. This wasn't corporate greed. This was criminal. His mind raced. This was evidence. The kind that could ruin Langley forever. Then a sound outside. Footsteps. Getting closer. The door burst open. Security. 2 men. Armed. Ready. Ethan barely had time to react before he was grabbed, slammed against the wall. Found him. One of the guards said into a radio. A third man walked in. Nathan Drake, Langley's security chief. Bad luck, Cole, Drake muttered. Should have stuck to mopping floors. A fist to his gut, the tablet hit the ground. The USB vanished into Drake's pocket. Ethan was hauled through the building, past desks, past people who didn't care. By the time he reached the lobby, Victor Langley was waiting. The billionaire stood there, hands in his pockets, watching as Ethan was shoved forward. Langley smiled, a calm, effortless grin. You don't exist, Cole, he said, his voice smooth. Cold. No one will believe you. The guards dragged Ethan outside. The doors closed behind him. And just like that, he was erased. By morning, Ethan's life had been completely wiped out. His bank account, frozen. His apartment, evicted. His name, smeared across the internet as a thief and liar. He had nothing. Again, that night, in a rundown motel, an email appeared in his inbox. No name, no sender, just words. Disappear, or else. Ethan stared at the screen. Langley wasn't just throwing him away. He was tying up loose ends. And Ethan, he was the last loose end. He could run, take the warning, vanish, or he could fight. Langley made one mistake. He thought Ethan was nobody. But nobodies, they had nothing to lose. Ethan sat in the dark. The motel room smelled like old cigarettes and desperation. The walls were thin. He could hear the muffled argument of the couple next door, the hum of a distant TV, the kind of place where people disappeared. He stared at the laptop screen. The email still glowed in the darkness. Disappear, or else. A threat, not a warning. Langley wasn't giving him a chance to run. This was a kill order. Ethan exhaled. He closed the laptop, wiped his face. He had spent years surviving in the shadows, taking punches, swallowing defeat. Not this time. By morning, his last credit card was declined. The motel manager banged on the door. Time's up, buddy. Pay or get out. Ethan grabbed his duffel bag, what Louis had left, and walked past the man without a word. One more place he couldn't go back to. He tried an ATM. Nothing. He checked his phone. Service disconnected. Langley had reached into his life like a god, flipping a switch, shutting him off. He walked through the city, invisible in the morning rush. People in suits, students with backpacks, coffee shop lines wrapped around corners. The world moved on, indifferent. He stopped at a gas station, staring at the flickering, help wanted sign in the window. Is this my life now? His fists clenched. No, not this time. Ethan had nothing. No money, no home, no way out. But he had knowledge. Langley thought he had erased the evidence. But Ethan had memorized it. Every number, every shell company, every offshore account. That was his skill. He saw the patterns no one else could. Langley thought he was finished. He was wrong. Ethan was the last loose end, and he was about to become Langley's worst nightmare. Ethan sat on a bench. The sun was setting, painting the city in streaks of red and gold. He had two choices: run, try to disappear, wait for the inevitable, or fight. No money, no allies, no resources. But he knew Langley's weakness. Everything the man had built was a lie, and lies could be unraveled. Ethan stood. No more running, no more hiding. It was time to bring the empire down. Ethan sat in a dark internet cafe, the glow of an ancient computer lighting his face. He didn't have much time. Langley's people would be watching for him. He pulled up an encrypted messaging board. He typed fast. Need to talk. Urgent. It's about Langley. A response came almost instantly. Who is this? He hesitated, then typed, Ethan Cole. I have proof. The connection dropped. Then a new message popped up. Meet me, 1 hour. No cops. Ethan shut the computer down. Maya Lynn had taken the bait. The bar smelled like whiskey and regret, the kind of place where deals were made in whispers. Maya Lynn sat at a corner table, a cigarette dangling between her fingers. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the room, waiting. Ethan slid into the seat across from her. You've got 2 minutes, she muttered. He dropped a napkin on the table. Scribbled numbers. Bank transfers. Shell corporations. Her cigarette burned out. She stared at him. Jesus. Ethan leaned in. I need your help. A long silence. Then she nodded. You just declared war, Cole. Damn right he had. Alex Carter's apartment was a disaster. Wires, computer monitors, energy drink cans stacked like trophies. You know how much trouble you just brought me? Alex grumbled, fingers flying across a keyboard. Yeah, Ethan said. That's why I came to you. Alex snorted. Langley ruined my family. I'd burn his empire down for free. Ethan smirked. Good, because we're just getting started. Rafael Ortega didn't look like much anymore. A worn-out man, sitting in a diner, staring into a cup of black coffee. I don't do this anymore, he muttered. Ethan slid a folder across the table. Langley took everything from you. Ortega's jaw clenched. He opened the folder. Bank records. False charges. Proof. His hands shook. He closed the folder. Took a deep breath. When do we start? A cheap motel. A single flickering light. A cracked wooden table. Maya Lynn sat with her laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. Alex Carter leaned against the wall, arms crossed, chewing gum like he had nowhere better to be. Rafael Ortega sat stiffly in a rickety chair, a flask in his hand. Ethan paced the room, his mind moving faster than the conversation. This is suicide, Rafael muttered, taking a sip. Ethan ignored him. What do we have so far? Maya turned her screen. Langley's money trail is dirty. I traced multiple offshore accounts linked to ghost charities. It's massive. How massive? Ethan asked. She exhaled. Try billions. Alex whistled. That's enough to bury him. Not yet, Ethan said. We need more. Something that can't be explained away. Maya clicked a few keys. There's one account still moving money. A slush fund in the Caymans. Alex grinned. Then that's where we hit him first. Raphael sighed, rubbing his temples. I already regret this. Ethan smiled. Too late for that. The attack had to be small, just enough to shake Langley's foundation. A financial tremor, not an earthquake. Alex hacked into a corporate server and leaked a single discrepancy in Langley Enterprises' balance sheets. Just one number, slightly off. Maya drafted an article under a fake name. Unaccounted funds? Langley's investors should be worried. It went live at 9 a.m. By noon, the stock dipped 3%. Not much, but enough. Enough for Langley to notice. By 5 p.m., Langley Enterprises Security Division was on high alert. Nathan Drake, Langley's chief enforcer, ordered full system sweeps. By 7 p.m., Maya's fake article was scrubbed from every major site. By 9 p.m., Ethan's motel room was ransacked. He came back to find the door kicked in, his bag ripped open, his things scattered. A single bullet sat on the table. A warning. A death threat without words. He picked it up, rolled it between his fingers. Langley was watching. Good. Ethan sat in a basement, the glow of laptops lighting up the faces of his team. We need something unbreakable, Maya said. Alex cracked his knuckles. You want real proof? We need inside access. Raphael shook his head. That's insane. Langley's security is tighter than a federal bank. Ethan looked up. Then we don't go through the security. Alex grinned. We go around it. Langley's offshore servers were locked behind multiple layers of encryption. No hacking from the outside. No leaks. No easy way in. So they had to do it old school. They needed a direct line. A tap inside Langley Enterprises, which meant someone had to walk right into the lion's den. Ethan walked back into the building he had been thrown out of, disguised. Fake ID. Security badge cloned by Alex. The corporate fortress loomed over him, its glass walls reflecting the city lights. One wrong move, and he was dead. He kept his head down, moved like he belonged. Through the lobby, past the elevators, to the server room. The mainframe was locked behind biometric access. Alex was in his ear. Swipe the card. For a second delay before the alarm pings. Move fast. Ethan swiped. Waited. The door clicked open. He stepped inside. Rows of servers hummed. Blinking lights casting eerie glows in the darkness. He pulled out a small device, Alex's custom-built data tab, plugged it in. A progress bar appeared. 10%, 20%, then a noise. Footsteps. Security. Ethan grabbed the device, tucked it into his sleeve. The door swung open. A guard stepped in. Eyes narrowed. Who the hell? Ethan moved first. He slammed the door into the man's face. Spun. Ran. Alarms blared. Get out, get out, get out. Alex's voice screamed in his earpiece. Ethan sprinted. Past cubicles. Past shocked employees. Security rushed from the elevators. The lobby was too far. The only option, the emergency stairwell. He slammed into the door, bolted down the stairs. 2 guards gave chase. Floor after floor. Breath ragged. Muscles burning. A window on the 3rd floor. Half open. No time to think. He jumped. Ethan crashed onto the rooftop of an adjacent parking garage. Rolled. Landed hard. Pain shot up his arm. No time for that. Keep moving. Security flooded the building behind him. He slid down a drainage pipe, hit the ground, and vanished into the streets. Gone. Back at the hideout. Ethan tossed the data drive onto the table. Alex plugged it in. Files flooded the screen. Maya's eyes widened. Oh, my God! Bank records. Wire transfers. Names. Politicians. Law enforcement. Even judges. Langley's empire was built on more than just fraud. This wasn't just corporate corruption. It was organized crime. Raphael ran a hand through his hair. Jesus, if this gets out, it won't just ruin Langley, Maya whispered. It'll take down half the financial world. Ethan exhaled. Good, he said. Then let's burn it all. Fire the war had officially begun. The first strike had to be small, just enough to make Langley look weak. Maya prepared the article. Alex set up anonymous proxies. Ethan checked the numbers one last time. The title was simple. Langley Enterprises, Financial Red Flags and Unanswered Questions. It wasn't an accusation. Not yet. Just enough breadcrumbs to make investors nervous. At exactly 9 a.m., the story went live. By 9:15, Langley's PR team denied everything. By 9:30, stockholders started calling. By 10 o'clock, the price dipped 5%. By noon, Victor Langley himself knew something was wrong. Inside the top floor of Langley Enterprises, Nathan Drake stood in front of Langley's desk. The CEO scrolled through his phone, his jaw tightening. Find out who did this, Langley muttered. Drake nodded. Already on it. Make it disappear. And the guy who leaked it? Langley looked up. Eyes cold. Make him disappear too. Ethan pushed open the door to his apartment. Stopped. The place was destroyed. Furniture flipped. Papers shredded. His laptop gone. A bullet sat on the kitchen counter. Beside it, a note. You were warned. His fists clenched. Langley had just made his first mistake. That night, Maya walked out her office. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message. Drop the story. Or you're next. Her heart pounded. She kept walking. Faster. Then, footsteps behind her. She turned a corner, ducking into an alley, holding her breath. A man in a black suit walked past, scanning the street. She wasn't safe anymore. She ran. Alex Carter sat in his darkened apartment. 6 screens glowing in front of him. Then a red alert flashed. SH*T, he muttered. Someone was in his system. Langley's cybersecurity team had found his connection. He grabbed his backpack, yanked out the hard drive, and wiped everything in 10 seconds. Then he ran. By the time security busted down the door, he was gone. Ethan met the team in a rundown warehouse. Maya was shaking. They found me. Alex threw his bag on the ground. Me too. Raphael lit a cigarette. Exhaled. They shouldn't have found us this fast. Silence. Then realization hit. Someone tipped Langley off. Ethan's eyes scanned the room. There was a mole. The safe house was no longer safe. They had to disappear. Burner phones. Fake IDs. Moving from one abandoned motel to another. Every hour, they checked their backs. Every night, they slept with one eye open. This wasn't just a corporate battle anymore. Langley wasn't defending himself. He was hunting them. Ethan stood alone on a rooftop, staring out at the city. Langley had money, power, resources. Ethan had nothing, except one thing. He had already survived being destroyed once, and this time, he was fighting back. Fire the real war was just beginning. The safe house was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan stepped through the door. His instincts screamed at him. Something was wrong. Then, a gun barrel pressed against his spine. "Don't move." A voice growled. A sharp crack to the head. Darkness. He woke up in a moving van. Hands tied. Feet bound. Nathan Drake sat across from him, cleaning his gun. "Stupid move, Cole," Drake muttered. Ethan didn't respond. His head pounded. The van turned sharply. They weren't taking him to a police station. This was an execution. The van stopped. The doors opened. 2 guards dragged Ethan into a sprawling mansion, Langley's private estate. Inside, Langley sat behind a mahogany desk, sipping a glass of whiskey. Calm, amused. "Still causing problems, I see," Langley said. Ethan stayed silent. Langley smirked. "You had a good run. But let's be honest. You're nothing." Ethan met his gaze. "We'll see about that." Langley sighed. "You always were stubborn." He nodded to Drake. "Take him outside. Make it quiet." Ethan was dragged through the trees, the scent of pine and dirt filling his lungs. A gravel pit loomed ahead, a place where bodies disappeared. Drake pulled out his gun. "This is how it ends, Cole." Ethan exhaled. "Not yet." Drake cocked the gun. Ethan grinned. "Check your phone," he said. Drake frowned. His radio crackled. Then, Langley's voice furious. "Get him back here. Now!" Drake's phone vibrated. He checked the screen. His face paled. News headlines. Breaking reports. Langley's offshore accounts. Exposed. The real leak had already happened. Ethan smirked. Checkmate. They dragged him back inside. Langley was pacing, phone glued to his ear, shouting. Stock prices plummeting. Board members resigning. Investigators already circling. He turned, eyes full of rage. "What did you do?" Ethan just smiled. "You lost." Langley grabbed a gun off his desk. Drake took a step forward. "Sir." Langley aimed it at Ethan. "You think this is over?" Ethan didn't flinch. "You already lost, Langley. You just don't know it yet." The door burst open. Sirens. Flashing lights. FBI. SEC armed agents swarming the state. Langley's world was collapsing. And Ethan? He was right in the middle of it. Fire the King was falling. And Ethan Cole was there to watch it happen. Victor Langley's estate exploded into chaos. Armed agents flooded in. Security scrambled. Phones rang nonstop. The walls of power were cracking. Langley stood frozen, his mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ethan just watched. "You feel that?" he said. "That's the sound of your empire falling." Langley's jaw clenched. "Not yet." He turned to Drake. "Get me out of here. Now." In the city, Langley Enterprises stock was in free fall. Board members were jumping ship. News stations ran back-to-back headlines on Langley's offshore accounts. Investors panicked. Shareholders bailed. A single day wiped out billions. Langley had always been the man in control. Now, control was slipping through his fingers. Ethan wasn't done. He had one more move to make. Maya had gathered the evidence. Alex had hacked Langley's internal files. Raphael had contacted the right people. And now, Langley's own board of directors was turning on him. Ethan leaked emails, contracts, recordings, proof that Langley had been stealing for his own company. The board called an emergency meeting. Langley wasn't invited. Langley paced his penthouse, rage boiling over. "Fix this," he roared into the phone. His lawyers stammered. We can't. The SEC is already involved. The FBI." Langley slammed the phone down. He turned to Olivia, his wife, his last ally. "Tell me you're still with me." Olivia said nothing. That's when he knew. Even she was ready to abandon him. Langley stormed into the Langley Enterprises tower. Security stopped him at the door. He glared at the guards. "I built this company. Get out of my way." The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Langley shoved through into the boardroom, where the entire board of directors sat. The chairman stood. "Victor, you've been voted out." Langley froze. It wasn't possible. He owned them, controlled them, or at least he used to. The board members didn't look at him with fear anymore. They looked at him like a man already dead. Ethan watched the news from a rooftop, smiling. Langley was unraveling, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. He turned to Maya, Alex, and Raphael. "Time to end this," he said. Langley still had one option left. He called his offshore contacts. There was one last deal that could save him. A high-stakes transaction that would move what remained of his fortune out of reach from the authorities. He didn't know it was a trap. Ethan had set him up. The moment Langley authorized the transfer, the FBI got everything they needed. Langley fled, grabbed his passport, his last briefcase of cash, rushed to his private jet. Ethan was already waiting. Not on the plane, not on the tarmac, but on every screen in the airport. As Langley walked toward his jet, every TV flickered. Breaking news: Victor Langley indicted on fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering. He stopped, looked around. People were staring at him. Then sirens. FBI agents stormed the runway. Langley ran. He almost made it to the plane. Then they tackled him to the ground. Handcuffs clicked. The cameras flashed. The empire was gone. And Victor Langley? He was done. Ethan stood in a crowded cafe, watching the TV. Langley was dragged into a police van. For the first time, the billionaire looked small, like just another criminal. Ethan sipped his coffee. Maya grinned. "So how does it feel?" Ethan exhaled. "It feels over." Fire Langley was finished. But Ethan Cole's story wasn't done yet. Langley sat in a dimly lit penthouse, staring at the documents on his desk. His empire was burning. His bank accounts were frozen. The board had betrayed him. But he still had one way out. One last deal. A massive offshore transaction. Hundreds of millions funneled into a hidden account, untouchable by regulators. If he could make this deal happen, he could disappear, escape, rebuild. He picked up the phone. Move the money. Now. The transaction began. What Langley didn't know, Ethan had been waiting for this moment. The transaction wasn't real. The offshore account? A sting operation. The contact Langley thought he was speaking to? An undercover investigator. As soon as Langley pressed the final authorization, the system flagged the transfer. The evidence was broadcasted to federal agents in real time. The final nail in the coffin. Across the city, Olivia Langley sat in a high-rise office, watching the news. She had two choices: go down with her husband, or save herself. She picked up her phone, dialed a private number. "I have information," she said. That night, she met with prosecutors, handed over files, emails, everything. In exchange, immunity. Langley was officially alone. Langley knew it was over. The offshore accounts were locked. His private jet was fueled and ready. If he could get on that plane, he could still disappear. No extradition, no prison. He grabbed his passport, his last briefcase of cash, and ran. As Langley's car sped toward the airport, his phone rang. The chairman of his board, Victor, the man said, "It's over." Langley's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Don't do this." "We already did." Langley's face twisted in fury. The board had cut all ties. The company had officially disowned him. He was no longer the CEO, no longer the king. He was just another criminal on the run. Langley's convoy reached the private terminal. His jet was right there. He stepped out of the car, adjusted his suit, took a deep breath. Then sirens. FBI vehicles skidded onto the tarmac. Agents flooded out. Langley turned. Nowhere left to run. He tried to walk toward the jet. "Freeze!" He ran. It lasted 3 seconds. Then they tackled him to the ground. Face slammed into the pavement. Handcuffs snapped shut. The empire was gone, and Victor Langley was finished. Ethan sat at a rooftop bar, sipping a drink. The TV screen above the bar showed Langley being dragged into a police van. People murmured. Someone laughed. Ethan didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just watched. Maya nudged him. "You did it." Ethan exhaled. "It's over." Fire Victor Langley ruled the world. Now, he was just another criminal. And Ethan Cole? He had won. The headlines spread like wildfire. Television, Victor Langley arrested in midnight sting operation. Television, Billionaire CEO faces charges of fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering. Television, a fall from power. The end of Langley Enterprises? News stations ran live footage of Langley in handcuffs. Paparazzi swarmed the courthouse. Former investors and politicians scrambled to distance themselves. The empire that had once controlled everything was now crumbling into dust. And the man who brought all down? A janitor. Ethan wasn't done. Langley was in custody, but his inner circle still needed to fall. Pushpin Nathan Drake, Langley's ruthless security chief, arrested, facing assault, conspiracy, and obstruction charges. Pushpin Samuel Keene, the corrupt lawyer, disbarred, under federal investigation for covering up financial crimes. Pushpin Olivia Langley, she cut a deal, immunity in exchange for testifying against her husband. One by one, every last piece of Langley's empire collapsed. Nobody got away clean. Not this time. Pushpin Maya Lin's article became the biggest story of the year. She didn't just win a Pulitzer. She became a legend. Pushpin Alex Carter's name was cleared. Langley's hacks against his family exposed his fabrications. He was finally free. Pushpin Rafael Ortega's law license was reinstated. The man Langley had destroyed was now back where he belonged. They had all been nobodies. Now, they were the ones who changed everything. Langley Enterprises was in shambles. The board was desperate. They needed a new leader. And the one name that everyone knew? Ethan Cole. They called him, begged him. Take over, they said. Run the company. Be the new king. Ethan sat in silence. He could take everything Langley had built, turn it into something real, something better. Ethan walked into boardroom, the same room where Langley had once ruled. The directors looked at him, waiting. Ethan placed a single piece of paper on the table. His answer, no. Gasps, murmurs. You're making a mistake, one board member said. Ethan smirked. No, you did. He turned and walked out, because he wasn't Langley, and he never would be. That night, Ethan stood on a quiet pier. The wind was cold. The city lights flickered behind him. In his hand, Victor Langley's gold watch, a symbol of everything Langley had built, everything he had stolen. Ethan turned it over in his palm. Then he let it drop. The watch hit the water, sank, gone, just like Langley's empire, just like the man himself. Ethan disappeared after that. No interviews, no press. No one knew where he went. But his story? It spread. Pushpin the janitor who took down a billionaire. Pushpin the nobody who became a nightmare for the rich. Pushpin the ghost who burned an empire to the ground. They used to say he didn't exist. Now, everyone knew his name. Fire Ethan Cole had won, and he never looked back. Langley Enterprises collapsed overnight. Pushpin stock prices hit rock bottom. Pushpin lawsuits flooded in from investors. Pushpin the government seized assets, tore apart shell companies, and froze offshore accounts. The financial world reeled. One of the biggest corporate giants had imploded from the inside, and no one saw it coming. They all asked the same question. How did this happen? The answer? Ethan Cole. News outlets scrambled to put together the full story. Reporters pieced together what little they could. Heavy checkmark a former financial analyst turned janitor. Heavy checkmark a man who had been erased from the industry. Heavy checkmark a whistleblower who refused to stay buried. They dug through old records, found traces of his past. Pushpin, one of the brightest forensic accountants of his time. Pushpin blacklisted after exposing corruption. Pushpin forced into obscurity until now. His name dominated headlines. But where was he? Nobody knew. Rumors spread. Pushpin, a man matching Ethan's description, was seen crossing the border into Canada. Pushpin, another report claimed he boarded a flight to South America under an alias. Pushpin, some said he was living off the grid, somewhere far away, but no one to confirm anything. Ethan Cole was gone. Pushpin Maya Lin became a media powerhouse. Her Pulitzer-winning investigation turned her into a legend. Pushpin Alex Carter opened his own cybersecurity firm, one that specialized in protecting whistleblowers and exposing corporate fraud. Pushpin Rafael Ortega returned to law, but this time on his terms. He became a nightmare for white-collar criminals. They never saw Ethan again, but they didn't need to. He had given them everything they needed to win. Langley was rotting in prison, but the people he worked with, the corrupt politicians, the criminals laundering money through his company, they were still out there. And now they knew Ethan's name. They weren't happy. Some of them wanted revenge. Others wanted to hire him. But Ethan, he wasn't interested in either. 1 year later, an anonymous email hit the inboxes of every major media outlet. No subject, no introduction, just a single sentence. It's never just one man. Keep digging. Attached, a single file. More names, more accounts, more evidence. The war wasn't over. Ethan Cole was still watching. People still talked about him. Some said he was dead. Others believed he had vanished into the underworld, working from the shadows. The wealthy feared him. The corrupt looked over their shoulders. Because if Ethan Cole had proved one thing, it was this: even a nobody can burn down an empire. And if it could happen once, it could happen again. Fire Ethan Cole was gone, but his legend would never die.